The True Objective Podcast with Objectivist girl Lauren Rumpler and Liberty.me writer Calvin Thompson. The True Objective Podcast, dispelling myths about our society.
We're just jamming out here in the studio. So welcome to the True Objective Podcast with your host, Lauren Rumpler, a.k.a. Objectivist Girl, and Calvin Thompson.
A.k.a. Liberty Incarnate.
I know, you left Liberty.me. What the hell?
Didn't
Tell us
leave.
all about it.
Oh, I just felt like taking a break from the social media for a while. So that's a
jeez.
thing.
Oh, jeez. Well, I know you guys have been missing the show. We're really excited that it's back on. My health is in order now. So we wanted to bring back the show and get started because, man, did I miss being on air. So let's go ahead and get started, Calvin. I'm on the defense today, right?
However you want to do it.
I'm on defense, I think, and you're
Yeah,
on
you
offense.
did place most of these in the current semblance of order, and you were definitely going to be taken to task for this.
Fun. Okay. All right, here we go.
All right, so let's see.
Remember the criteria for president's order, and this is number 2. So remember, there were people that were more acceptable than they were. Is the only criteria for them being in the order that they are in is that they are better than the person before them. Not that any of them were good. We don't think any of them are good.
The other thing is that it can't be. They can't get credit for things they didn't do when they were president.
That too.
Because if that was the case, then you could give a lot more credit to, say,
Adams,
George Washington,
John
Adams, Teddy Roosevelt, who all did plenty of cool things when they were not president.
Right.
But-
So, I guess let's go ahead and get started with the first one.
All right, quick review. Our last episode was, 44 to 35?
Yes,
sound right?
because we are starting on 34.
35 was Franklin Pierce, and that brings us to today's 34 at Gerald Ford.
So, I am gonna have to play defense for Gerald Ford. So this should be fun. So I chose Gerald Ford as number 34 because he did cut federal spending. He called for the creation of voluntary inflation fighting organization named the Whip Inflation Now, which is like really silly. But
Yeah, that sounds kind of pretentious.
But it was a voluntary inflation fighting organization, which is, by the way, is ineffective because inflation comes from government. So it was kind of a facade, honestly, but the fact that he was making it public that the dollar was overly inflated, I do give him credit for that.
There's a certain amount of irony in creating yet another government organization to fight the problems created by the inflation of government organizations. It's like creating the board to reduce the amount of government boards.
Yeah, but
or
it wasn't a
something like
government program. That's the only reason
was it
that
not?
No. It's totally voluntary.
Okay.
There was absolutely no pay. You got no pay for it. It was just, a crime-fighting organization. Whip Inflation Now.
I
That's
can't-
so stupid.
I can't condemn that then, aside from the fact that it just had a really idiotic name. But I'll tell you something I can throw in your direction. Nixon. Ford pardoned him. So
I
drops mic.
will give you that he did pardon Nixon. I think that it really was because he was the VP. I like to think that it's just because for a publicity stunt, honestly. I think a presidential pardon doesn't really mean anything anyway. So I don't think anybody takes it that seriously. So
so.
but no, they should have taken him to task. I totally agree.
He was also the guy that said there is no Soviet domination of Eastern Europe and never will be under a Ford administration.
Yeah, the dude was a horrible debater. I'll give you that. He was a bad debater. He regretted that a lot afterwards.
I should hope so.
But he did pass the Freedom of Information Act, which is good. Because having information is good. And he announced the creation of a presidential commission to review the CIA. Any president that'll go, the CIA is should be under investigation. They're a little shady. Yeah, anybody that can do that, I give a little bit of credit to.
No, a little bit.
Yeah.
That's why he's on this list and not in a couple weeks from now.
Yeah, right.
All right, so we have kind of a unique. Oh, that's right. We're
yeah,
going to the fun fact.
yeah,
Yes,
we always have to do a fun fact.
Yes.
So,
Go
did
ahead.
you guys know at birth, Ford was named Leslie Lynch King Jr.?
Adorable.
He was also a model.
Proof right there that standards of beauty have changed somewhat.
He's not very pretty. There's nothing pretty about the guy. I mean, nothing.
Did you find out what kind of model? Because I'm picturing like a watch model where you
Well,
just saw his dainty little hands.
I mean,
or
he
something.
certainly couldn't be an ear model, but Barack Obama could be. Because his ears are huge.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they really are. They're you've never seen the caricatures of him with the big elephant ears? Yeah,
I
he's
guess I
got
haven't paid much
huge
attention.
ears.
Huh.
And, you know,
Wingnuts.
Michelle Obama looks like a man.
I will give you that.
She does. So, let's see. So the next one, which is 32 and 33.
It's kind of a weird
Um,
case. We only have one president in U.S. history who ran two separate terms that were not connected together.
So
when,
we
when-
figured we'd give him two positions.
well, when people number the presidents, they do include him twice.
Right.
If you hadn't figured it out, it's Grover Cleveland.
Yeah. So, the good things. He said that this office seeking is a disease. I am entirely satisfied of that. It is even catching. Men get it and they lose the proper balance of their minds. I've known men who come to Washington on other business with no thought of office, but when they had been there a couple weeks, they've got it. And so he understood that, you know, office seeking was a disease and that there were career politicians, and he pointed it out. I appreciated that. I thought that was a good thing that he did. He also
Granted that is kind of an awesome quote, but to immediately counterbalance it, he was from New York. So just
he
leave
was
it at that.
from New York. I will give you that. New Yorkers are weird. I mean, do you have you seen what's it called? 1776 the musical?
No.
Oh my god, you need to. So one of the things that happens, and all of this is like actual account, like actual dialogue from journals. And so the guy from New York, the representative from New York, on the in 1776, and at the Constitutional Convention, he stood up and he said, you know, he always was saying that he wanted to abstain. And, you know, they yelled at him one time for abstaining. And he goes, have you ever been to a meeting of the New York legislature? They talk very, very fast and nobody listens to anybody. And I'm like, wow, that sounds like New York now.
I'd say
So-
not much has changed.
I
Right.
guess, you know, years ago. But he also vetoed more bills in his presidency than any other president to that date combined. He was finally passed by FDR.
But FDR ran 4 terms. So
Right.
there's that.
So not really a fair comparison, but was still but it was 4 terms, right? And so he also he let JP Morgan act as the Federal Reserve for the government at the time by bailing out the government with his advice to allow European citizens to trade gold for US bonds. So he let JP Morgan basically say to the Federal Reserve, like, we should let citizens trade gold for US bonds. Well, that was a bad thing for citizens to decide to do. It was good that they were trying to find a better way than just, you know, printing more dollars. You
I
know?
suppose so.
Yeah. So I'll give him that. That's pretty iffy.
Yeah,
You
a
know,
little bit.
my good goes down as I list them off. And he called out troops to suppress the Pullman card company strikes, which is negative, and I have no idea how it ended up on the positive list. But yeah, so
because
that's
Objectivist
bad.
Girl has had a full turnaround, and now she's endorsing the iron might of the American military-industrial
I
complex.
love the military.
Lord. Okay, so counterpoint.
Jeez.
First off, aside from the New York thing, which really I think is unforgivable enough in and of itself.
It really
but,
is.
But passing that, he made a speech about the railroad strikes at the time, I believe it was 1886, saying that the government should be an arbiter in all these labor disputes. Now, I'm not going to condemn him too much for that, not as much as I would nowadays, because this was in the very dawning of progressivism, before anyone really had a great case study of how badly it works. So I can chalk that up to naivete. But what I will not chalk up to naivete are the creation of all his government departments. He
Oh my
created
God,
the,
he was so awful about government
the
department.
Interstate Commerce Commission, the
Very
Department of
few
Labor,
presidents
and the
have one.
Department of Agriculture. He just created
Yes.
every damn thing.
It's really bad about that. Especially the freaking Commerce Commission. Don't even get me started on how bad that is.
He did have a line that I like, though. It is a plain dictate of honesty and good government that public expenditures should be limited by public necessity. So he's on the right track there. Didn't go far enough by my standards, obviously, but I mean, that's something. Again, that's why he's on this list instead of next week or the week after.
Mm-hmm.
You got your fun fact for him?
Oh, yeah. So Cleveland's daughter was Baby Ruth, and the candy bar was supposedly named after her. His daughter Esther was born in the White House. He was the only man married in the White House. He was the second married while in office. And he said that anarchist labor leaders were to blame for the railroad strikes. What?
You got to understand. I don't know too much about that event specifically.
Anarchist labor leaders. That is an oxymoron.
No, it's not. Not in the least. You got to brush up on your history of anarchism.
Oh, geez.
Anarcho-capitalism is
That's true. That's true.
creation
It's relatively
of the last
new.
century.
Yep. So gave a bad name to anarchy. And he was the
I
only
didn't say that.
president that had been elected twice in 2 separate terms, obviously, which we already discussed. So yeah, no, not anarchist friendly. So don't like the guy.
Well, I mean, if you're president, chances are you trust the system enough to not get along with anarchists.
I don't
that
know,
terribly well.
Ron Paul. But chances, you said chances. So,
Yeah.
Odds.
Yep.
So our next one is James Madison. We're going back early again. So,
I'm just gonna point out that as these go on, your good list is gonna keep getting shorter and
I
shorter.
know,
and my
right?
bad list is gonna keep getting longer
It's
and longer.
really
Let's see if
hard.
you can justify this one. All
Okay,
right, what
so
you got?
he did issue a proclamation authorizing the occupation of West Florida.
That was owned by Spain at the
I
time.
know, but I mean,
Are you a supporter of Manifest Destiny?
I don't what? No, but I'm in favor of homesteading.
What does that have to do with anything?
I
Do
don't know,
you
I mean,
think
can't they go in and take over the land that's not being used? I mean, I hope they didn't kill anybody.
that's not the same
occupying
thing?
it,
We're
but-
talking about full-on national imperialism, which is all Manifest Destiny was. He was taking over a country or a territory that another sovereign state owned.
Fair enough.
Nowadays, we would call that a number of things. A terrorist act comes to mind.
I agree with
just-
you. I know that the fact that it was occupied by Spain is a bad thing, but
The other thing I will say,
moving south for us is a good thing.
one thing I will say is that the Spanish were a lot more friendly with the Indian populations in Florida than the Americans ever were. So
Oh well,
If
then
you
I
wanna
guess
make
that's a bad thing.
yeah, if you want to make a case for the indigenous people, and that's
Oh,
not to
wait,
say the Spanish were great.
But I'm an objectivist. I have to hate the Native Americans. Remember? You
Oh, yeah,
haven't
that's-
seen Ayn Rand's quote about the Native Americans?
No.
She said that it was totally justified that we came in and killed and slaughtered them and took their land
We?
because
We?
I'm sorry.
Was that us, Lauren? I
the
mean, I
early
know we
settlers.
got blackout drunk a couple of days ago,
gosh.
but did we do that?
Jeez. No, we didn't. I don't do that. But seriously, no.
But that's the only missing time I can
she
account for when
stated-
I might have,
Jeez.
taken over the
Okay,
Americans.
all right.
but-
I said we. No, she said that it was perfectly okay for the early settlers to come in and take it over because the Indians didn't properly know how to use the land to create value, so therefore they didn't really own it.
All right, we best move
She's-
on before I
she's-
start
yeah,
singing
she's-
Pocahontas lyrics right
she's
here.
she stressed me out with that one. So he let the U.S. bank charter expire and made it difficult to fund war efforts. That was cool. He
Okay,
also
I will give him credit for that.
he also admitted Louisiana is the 18th state.
Once again,
And
do-
as long
do
as you
have-
want to voluntarily associate with the federal government, then it's okay. But I don't.
I'm gonna start going all Lysander Spooner on you if you keep including the inclusion of new states as good things. Did every single person in said territory agree to become a part of the U.S. government? No, that's a bad thing, then.
Okay.
I didn't sign your social contract. Just about every Louisianan, if that's the term, Louisianan, whatever. Just about everyone in Louisiana at the time did not sign said social contract.
Okay.
Ergo,
okay.
it was a use of force and unjustified. No gods, no masters. Let's see. He
All right, lay it on me.
He declared war against Britain.
Yep.
Now, I will not say that was a. I mean, this was the War of 1812. There were reasons for hostilities. I'll grant you that, but nonetheless, I'm not going to let anyone off the hook for going to war.
War. What is it good for?
Freeing slaves.
Except
something.
for no, we'll get into that with Lincoln. That was not a thing. Of the things that are things, that was not a thing.
Well, you asked what could it be good for? I can think of a few things.
You don't free people with war. You kill people with war. Guess how you free people? With conversations. The conversations after the war are where the peace results and where all the good things result. The war is where the death happens.
You might not be able to free other people from war, but you can use a war to free yourself.
Bad communication skills do not make it okay to kill people. I got you on that one. All right.
Let's see. He passed the very prudishly sounding but actually great Non-Intercourse Act of 1809, which is a foreign trade bill.
Yeah, it sounds so great, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It just means we're not allowed to trade with everybody.
Yeah, he basically.
It's like the Patriot Act.
No.
Sounds so patriotic.
In any case, so he placed a lot of restrictions on free trade. Let's see. He called for a national bank, protective tariffs to promote industry in the U.S., and he also wanted to build up the military. So there's that. Again, not great, but nowhere near terrible, at least compared to
it just keeps getting
his other
worse.
colleagues. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, you got your fun fact?
It was said about Madison that he spent as much time politicking as he did thinking, and he was very good at both. He used a law book instead of the Bible for his swearing in. I will give him credit for that.
That's actually kind of funny. It's
kind of awesome. So the next one is Chester A. Arthur. So number 30, Chester A. Arthur. His good things.
Go ahead.
So he vetoed a Chinese Exclusion Act. I like that.
Yeah, I can't fault him for that.
Yep. He passed the Pendleton Civil Service Reform Act, which
reformed the civil service.
Yeah. It decreased it, so that's good.
People don't really understand just how terrible a lot of civil service positions were back in the day, and I don't mean terrible for the people in the positions. I mean, if you think the federal government bureaucracy is a con now, you should have seen it 120 years ago.
I know, right? So it was people like Arthur that helped us, not us. The federal government get a little smaller before it got bigger again. So, and he used the budget surplus to reduce the national debt. Go, Arthur!
Yeah.
Getting us out of debt. The federal government out of debt. I'm not in debt.
Now I see you have here listed as bad that he created the Geneva Convention. Do you know what that is?
Why don't you enlighten me?
It's what establishes what we consider war crimes. Like that you're not allowed to gas certain people and things like that. That there are certain behaviors that are not okay in war and should be considered criminal acts.
This just made it more acceptable for people to have war. I'm not cool with it. Anything having to do with war went on the bad list. I don't think war is okay. And so saying that certain things.
So you're saying it's a problem to make war more humane because it makes it more acceptable?
Yeah, because the worse war is, the worse that we allow people to understand that war is, then the less likely it is for us to go to war. It's things like the Geneva Convention that make it so people are like, oh, well, they're not allowed to do certain. Not that they follow those procedures. I mean, we all know about the whole Bush thing with his horrible torture of all of the Iraqi citizens.
Actually, if we're getting really technical, I don't believe that any of that waterboarding stuff violates the Geneva Conventions because it's not uniformed combatants.
And it just strengthens my point. the point is that they're saying, the Geneva Convention was basically saying that we're going to practice war in a civil manner, but war is never acceptable.
So, by taking your logic to the opposite conclusion, should you not then, as a libertarian, suggest that we put all of our military spending, if we're going to have it, towards nuclear weaponry to basically make any war that we engage in just a holocaust of blood and destruction, so that way people will eventually learn to hate war? Basically, we should make it worse so people will think, hey, war sucks.
I think we
Because
should not.
I kind of think
we should not pretend that there are actual rules to war. And especially because the Geneva Convention protects other countries from the things that the U.S. federal government can't do. It doesn't actually protect U.S. soldiers. And so therefore, I mean, it creates this false sense of security in, it makes us realize that, our citizens, if you look at it objectively, I'm sorry, not our citizens, but the U.S. citizens are actually in great danger, and the Geneva Convention masks that.
Lord, I'm not giving you that one. I
No?
think any effort to make war more humane is probably for the best. It's better than doing the opposite.
I don't know. I feel like sugarcoating things just makes them worse.
Well, a lot
I
of
guess
people,
we're gonna have to agree to disagree on this one.
well, I'm just gonna leave it here. But really quickly,
Wait,
a lot of people
Were you on the offense?
a lot of people last century took that same attitude, basically that war should be more horrific, so that way people will be less inclined to participate. Richard Gatling, the guy who came up with the Gatling gun, the predecessor to the machine gun, invented it because he wanted to make war so horrible that no one would participate in it. And that's not what happened at all. What happened was suddenly war got a lot bloodier because people were able to shoot great numbers of bullets instead of just one or two at a time. Yeah, cool in concept, but in practice, that line of thought has a tendency to backfire bad, and lots of people die.
Okay.
In any case, let's see.
Yeah, we should keep moving.
He signed a revised version of the Chinese Exclusion Act, which basically meant that Chinese immigrants couldn't come over for about 10 years.
Oh god. Yeah, that was a particularly bad one. I really hate any president that makes any sort of any blockades on immigration. I think that people should be free to move within borders. And every time that not every time, but a lot of times when immigrants come to different countries, they end up not only bringing good culture, new cultures that end up increasing people's knowledge, but also new business ideas,
Agreed.
new innovations. Immigration is a great thing.
I think it's really interesting to see nowadays how anti-immigration a lot of conservatives are, and these same conservatives basically make all the same arguments about free trade, but when it's moving people across borders freely instead of just goods and resources across borders freely, there's this fundamental disconnect that I really don't understand.
I mean, Republicans are supposed to be pro-business, but yet they don't want to let
you
all the
can't
intelligent
be pro-business
people here.
without being pro-immigration.
Yeah.
Not really.
Not really. You're right, because a lot of those immigrants are willing to do jobs that a lot of, people aren't willing to do.
Yep.
Like such as, a lot of Mexicans who do a lot of jobs for almost free.
Anyway, so real quick on Arthur, just to finish up, he strengthened the Navy, so there's that. And he also created the United States Bureau of Labor. So not letting him off the hook for that.
Wow,
let's
that's
see.
a bad one.
As far as the fun fact, Arthur actually defended fugitive slaves as an attorney, and once obtained the freedom of 6 slaves when their owner transported them through New York.
Pretty cool. I'm happy with that. So number 29, Herbert Hoover. Oh man. Do you remember Hoovervilles?
Yep.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. So under the administration of Herbert Hoover, the Agricultural Market Act of 1929 established the Federal Farm Bureau from the Federal Farm Loan Board, established by the Federal Farm Loan Act of 1916, if you can follow all that, with a revolving fund of $500 million. The original act was sponsored by Hoover in an attempt to stop the downward spiral of crop prices by seeking to buy, sell, and store agriculture surpluses, or by generously lending money to farm organizations. money was loaned out to the farmers in order to buy seed and food for the livestock. This was especially important since there had been a drought in Democratic South previously, but Hoover refused to lend to the farmers themselves, thinking that it was unconstitutional, and if they were lent money, they would become dependent on government money. I think that, for me, was the reason that he made number 29.
Now,
that right there. There's one other thing, but
I-
honestly, that was the deciding factor. for
real
me.
quick, I can see where you're coming from with that being a good thing, but on the other hand, I would say that the government bailing people out of their problems sets up a bad track record and gets folks to rely on the feds for other things where the benefits are not quite so clear cut and the penalties are a lot more insidious in the long term. Just
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
okay.
We totally agree on that. That was the good thing, is that he didn't allow it.
No. I'm saying it's gonna happen anyway.
Oh,
Just a lot more subtly. So
interesting.
let's see.
Well, at least he tried,
Yeah.
When there's a government, there's, always going to be people depending on it. At least he made an attempt to, try to stop it. So he vetoed the bonus loans bill, which would allow veterans to obtain cash loans up to 50% of their bonus certificates issued in 1924. And if you don't understand that, it was basically them trying to cheat veterans out of their money that they earned in serving in their job. I don't agree with the military, but if you're going to hire military soldiers, pay them.
Yeah. Well, other than there is a fine line between conscription and slavery, and I think that line is when they receive wages. If you're being forced to do something against your will, not only
Don't make it look like it's an established good job by paying them, because then it makes it okay. They're actually slaves, and I mean, to pay them is to lessen the understanding from other individuals that they're slaves.
right.
I mean, make it what it is. They are slaves.
Let's see. As far as the bad, he raised tariffs on over 20,000 imported goods. That was a record level at the time.
By the way, I forgot to add in there, it's important to note that during Hoover's administration, the draft was still a thing and was used. So when I say that they're slaves, they literally were slaves.
Yeah, this isn't calling modern conscripted soldiers.
No, these are
slaves,
people, those are people that signed up. This was drafted soldiers. So anyway, I thought that was important to point out because, you can't, you can sell yourself into slavery if you want. I think people have the freedom to sell themselves into slavery.
People do it all the time.
Yeah, it's
not,
okay.
Not in such a word, but
I think it's okay. I mean,
yeah.
I wouldn't, but whatever.
If you're capable of making an informed decision, then yeah, you can do it.
Yep.
Let's see. I know you had a problem with a quote of his. Let's see. The trouble with capitalism is capitalists. They're too damn greedy. While on the one hand, I understand where you're coming from. I also urge you to remember that the capitalism of 100 years ago, the mass industrial capitalism, created really low standards of living for a hell of a lot of people. And there was a lot of legitimate humanitarian concern with the industrial capitalism of the day.
Well, he wasn't pointing at the real problem. The problem was the regulation of the market by the government that created those, that ability to be so, to create monopolies, because monopolies can only be created by the government.
I agree.
Because it's through coercion that monopoly happens, and you can't coerce the free market. The market is a much harsher mistress than the government ever will be. I mean, the market is mean.
No, I completely agree.
People are mean.
But it's impossible to separate the industrial capitalism of the day from the state. They were so intertwined that I think you can safely condemn.
You'll notice,
one or the other.
Obviously, all the monopolies, all the issues were just because these certain people were allowed to get around laws that were created. If those laws didn't exist, then nobody would have any competitive advantage, and this wouldn't have been an issue at all.
Oh, I know,
And-
honey. You're
and the
preaching to the
fact-
guy who privatized
and
the
the fact
choir.
that
I gotcha.
The reason that I really have a problem with this is that it says that they're too damn greedy. And the thing about it is that their greed is the reason that they went into the business in the first place, and is they're providing these amazing goods because they want to make a ton of money, and they work hard to make this money. So it's painting greed to be a negative thing. Greed is the reason that we have all of the innovations
Yes, we've
that
all
we
read
have.
Atlas Shrugged. We're on the
love
same
Atlas
page.
Shrugged. Or The Fountainhead, recommended by Mark Cuban.
Let's see. He established the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, which lent money to banks and insurance companies and other institutions to stimulate the economy. So basically, early economic stimuli. So that's fun. He also spoke to his wife in Chinese on occasion.
Yeah. And he was the first Quaker president.
Is he the only Quaker president? don't even know.
It said first in my reading, and I mean there may have been another Quaker president. I don't know, but he was the first Quaker president. So I'm guessing because they cited that he was first, there was another Quaker president.
Right.
There was only one Roman Catholic president though, and eventually we'll get to that. So stay tuned for later shows.
Only one?
Only one ever.
Pretty sure I know who it is.
Yay. Number 28,
Warren
Warren Harding. So he did sign the Budget and Accounting Act, establishing the Bureau of Budget and General Accounting Office under the Treasury Department. That is literally his only good thing, and it's not even really that good. If he had really wanted to do good, he would have gotten rid of, the government having money. But, at least it was an attempt at regulating internally.
Okay. Real quick.
Rip him a new one, Calvin.
He signed the Emergency Quota Act, which limited immigration to 3% a year. Bam. I don't care what other good stuff you could throw at him.
I know.
That
guy's bad.
That kind of settles it.
He's bad.
He also helped booster the state's he helped boost the state's responsibility in caring for infants and young ones, basically taking that away from the private sector.
Yeah.
He signed the Maternity and Infancy Act, which basically granted funding to the states and to the federal government for child care. Again, not anything too heinous on its own, but as far as the precedent that it's set,
yeah,
I think we could have done without it. Yep.
Yeah, when people are relying on the state instead of themselves, it creates a perpetual problem.
I'll tell you something that's very interesting that I was actually reading about real recently. Up here in New Hampshire, we had a lot of Shaker communities.
Oh, yeah.
You're familiar with them?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, the Shakers were actually celibate.
Yeah, they were.
You know how they got new members into their communities?
No, but I know there are 2 of them left in the world.
They did a lot of adoption, actually, way back in the day.
Interesting.
Now, a lot of people left Shaker communities when they came of age, but a lot of them didn't. So, yeah, the Shakers, since they didn't have any kids of their own, would take in all sorts of kids, and they did a lot of this adoption sort of thing before the state really had its claws into it. But as state power got greater and greater in regards to child rearing and upbringing, Shakers and other private groups were less able to take in kids. And so, it's not like people weren't being adopted or cared for before the state. It's just the state took responsibility and turned it into something insidious.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what's your fun fact?
You forgot the Teapot Dome scandal.
Yes.
Yeah, can you tell them a little bit about that?
Oh Lord, it's honestly not something I don't know. Wow, that I am become error. That made no sense.
I have become error.
It's not something I've read terribly much about, to be perfectly honest.
I'm trying to remember how that worked out. Why don't you look that up real quick and give them a small brief?
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell them about the fun fact.
Okay.
So Warren Harding was the first incumbent U.S. senator to be elected president. He was the only person that had ever been, up until that time, a senator and then became president for the federal government, a senator for the federal government. He was also the first president to ride to his inauguration in an automobile. New invention. It was very exciting. It was probably the Ford Model T, right? Wasn't that the first one? Ford Model.
Come again. I'm sorry.
First. Oh, well, I guess Ford Model A would come before Ford.
No,
Model
the T was first, actually.
Oh, I thought so. See, I'm not. I always second guess myself. So he rode to his inauguration probably in the Ford Model T.
There were other cars before then. It's just that was the first one that was really mass produced.
Oh yeah, that was. I think it was the only one that was really safe.
No, there were safe ones. They were just ridiculously expensive.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But then again, that was what made Ford so great, was he was able to create cars that everyone could have. He made the car what it is today. Instead of a luxury item, it was something that everybody could go with.
It's almost enough to offset the anti-Semitism and the support of Nazism and all that other fun stuff that no one mentions. Okay, so the Teapot Dome scandal was basically a bribery incident. Harding's Secretary of the Interior was a guy named Albert B. Fall, and he basically leased the Navy Petroleum reserves at Teapot Dome in Wyoming to a couple of private oil companies at really low rates without competitive bidding. So basically, his presidential
Looking out for
career
his
was,
buddies.
Yeah, it was tarnished by a corruption scandal.
Yep. Welcome to when capitalists are involved and in bed with the government. That's how that works.
Yep.
So John Quincy Adams. He did nothing.
You think so?
Yeah. Not really.
Okay. Now,
Other than the bad thing that he did. I will give him that he did, and you're probably going to disagree with me on this, that he did help create a railroad in Baltimore and Ohio. And while I understand that federal government shouldn't be involved in public works projects, I do think that it was a huge advancement for the growth of the United States. And I think that it was a good thing, and it brought us technologically to where we are now. I don't think in the position that we were during John Quincy Adams' time, the U.S., I mean, like as a country, I don't think we could have, any individual citizen or company could have really afforded to create a railroad, because, heavy taxes. But he did a horrible bad thing. What did he do, Calvin?
Yeah, see, this is where we disagree on the placement. Is I personally would have put Adams a bit higher on the list, and the reason for that is
I actually kind of agree.
Oh, maybe this one was misplaced.
I think so, too.
Adams, even though it's named after someone else, Adams created the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine was later kind of bastardized and twisted by people like Teddy Roosevelt, but in its original form, basically what it said was that all the European powers that had colonies over here in the Americas should basically bugger off, and that if they kept colonizing and dominating the Central and South American states, that the U.S. would intervene.
We're the big guys, and we're gonna crush you if you try and take over our land that's not really ours. And that
No,
we don't
it wasn't
legally
that. It
own.
was more of a the smaller American powers didn't have the ability to defend themselves from Europe like America did. So it was more of we'll step in if it gets hairy down there for
I
you
guess
guys.
he's so
No,
low
no,
on
that-
the
that-
list because I got bullied in high school.
No, that's what I said.
I
it
view him as a
started
bully.
That's what it started as. Now,
Okay.
later on, people, like I said, like Teddy Roosevelt, used that as a excuse to basically invade every damn thing. But you can take any idea and
Yeah.
pervert it with time.
That's the worst part about the whole thing is what it developed into.
As it was construed by Adams, I think it was a pretty good idea.
I mean, it's really dark now. I mean,
Yep.
the things that it has been used to do is scary.
Yep. Now, he was a master diplomat, actually. Now, I'm not going to give him too much credit for creating the Monroe Doctrine because he created it when Monroe was president, hence the name. But he did take it a lot further than Monroe ever did. He was really the first master of that policy. But the other thing, which I just thought was interesting, was that he actually saw the Civil War coming several decades before it did.
Interesting.
Yep.
He was a sage.
He knew what was going on.
Yeah,
He actually served in either the Congress or Senate, I can't remember which, for quite a while after he was president, too.
Can you also tell them a little bit about what the Monroe Doctrine was able to perpetuate into over the years?
What do you mean?
What it has been used for since it was created for us to, the federal government to do.
Are you thinking of something specific? I'm not quite sure what you're getting at here.
You know what? Keep talking. I got it.
Now, if you're talking about all that business in Mexico about 100 years ago, then yeah, I would most heartily agree.
Yeah, Mexico. Do you want to tell them a little bit about what happened?
Oh, just that the Monroe Doctrine was used as an excuse for the invasion of Mexico in the 1910s, and just a bunch of other relatively minor but unpleasant military actions. Like I said, it was twisted over time, but it started out as not that terrible of a thing. Let's see. Moving on.
And the Post Boulevard events.
Yeah.
Yeah. In 18...
No, that's what spurned it. Okay, so basically, all of well, I'm just completely drawing a blank now. All of the Central and South American states basically revolted from Spain and Portugal at about the same time. A lot of them were led by a guy named Simon Bolivar, which is where we get the country Bolivia. He was a true revolutionary, and honestly, as far as American political figures, I probably respect him more than just about anyone else. But in any case, the Monroe Doctrine was created because all these minor Central and South American countries were weak. It was just saying, if Europe intervenes, we'll help you out. Yeah, of course, war in and of itself is never a good thing, but you were saying before, what is war good for? I think it's more justified there than it is in most other cases. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. We got a lot time. Yeah, we still got a couple people to cover and not much time to do it.
Ooh, and I think it's important, the Kerry Doctrine. Obama's Secretary of State, John Kerry, told the Organization of American States in November 2013 that the Monroe Doctrine was dead. That's interesting. I think that's interesting. Anyway, I just wanted to say that because I think it's important. I don't know why. So
you have a way with words tonight.
I do. So, fun fact.
Mhm.
I feel like it's very appropriate that I say this. So, John Quincy Adams was very popular for taking naked swims in the Potomac every morning.
Well, I mean, different strokes. It probably wasn't as nasty then. In fact,
different strokes.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's great. His wife was also the first and only foreign first lady, and she was a looker. I mean, this woman was beautiful. Yes.
All right. Who do you have next?
Fillmore Millard. I mean, who names their kid Miller? I mean, really? What planet do you have to be living on to name your child Millard? So good stuff. He opened trade with Japan.
I would count that as bad.
Come
honestly.
on. Anytime you open trade with anybody, that's a good thing.
You do realize
It might have had negative ramifications, but I'll tell you what.
No. The way trade was opened is basically Americans sailed into Japanese ports and were like, "We will open fire on you if you don't trade with us."
Oh, I love this book. It wasn't very specific about opening trade. It just stated that he opened trade. So he actually viciously.
No, that wasn't him specifically. I believe that was Perry. But still, the method in which trade was opened up was less than ideal.
Okay, so good that we had trade with Japan,
But
but
on the other-
bad the way we did it.
on the other hand, he threatened to open fire on a dictatorial Japanese regime. So when you have
Fun stuff.
one set of tyrants, offering to kill the other, I'm not going to count that as a good, but I'll give you a neutral.
Okay, all right. So he also passed the Fugitive Slave Act, which meant that any slave that was able to escape was free. So,
Are you sure that's what that was?
yes,
You positive?
I'm positive.
All right, keep talking. I'm looking this up.
I don't know what to talk about. Trade is good. Trade is awesome. Let's trade. Do you want to trade with me?
No. You don't have anything of value, Lauren.
I don't have anything of value. I have my mind.
It's funny because poverty.
My mind is very valuable. But I'll tell you what the bad thing was. He divided the country by signing the Compromise of 1850. So the Compromise of 1850 was basically the real start to all the, Civil War nonsense. And fun fact, Fillmore was the last Whig president. So no more Whig Party after Fillmore. They kind of dropped off the earth. Mainly because they just kept losing. So, that was the thing.
Okay, so, I was right. Fugitive Slave Act basically allowed people to go into the North and grab slaves who had escaped to freedom and drag them back to the South.
Nuh-uh.
Yep.
What was I thinking of then?
I have no idea. You need to cut back on the drugs.
I do. I need to cut back on the drugs.
Yeah.
This is what vacation does to me.
Mm.
I'm not sharp anymore. So, no, he didn't do anything good.
No, but he was still a lot better than a lot of the people to come after, which is why he's
all
on
right.
this.
I'll give you that. The bad things the people did after him were worse than the things he did. So Benjamin Harrison, good. He admitted the South and North Carolina, Montana, Washington, Idaho, Wyoming, which you would say is actually bad. And you know what? After your argument, I'm gonna have to agree with you. Not everybody in the territory would have to be happy about it.
Yep.
So, why don't you carry on with all the bad things that Harrison did?
Let's see. He deposed the Queen of Hawaii. This is gonna be difficult. Liliuokalani. Liluio Kalani.
I used to be able to say it. Lilio Kalani.
Was she married to King Kamehameha? Because that one I remember because it's also the special move in Dragon Ball Z.
He was right before her.
Okay.
I believe that she took over after him.
Okay.
So, you know, he interfered in other countries' business. And
Yeah,
just,
so
you know,
he colonized Hawaii. Let's see.
that was nice of him.
Yeah. Let's see. He signed really high tariffs to foreign products. Pretty much the same old shtick.
Helpful.
People were really into tariffs.
Buy American!
Yeah, still are, I guess, to an extent. Let's see. Of interesting note, electric lights were put into the White House by Harrison. Or excuse me, they were put into the White House. Harrison
yeah, this is great.
He didn't trust him, so he kept using gas. He also dressed up as Santa for Christmas.
Oh, how cute.
I understand that he's probably he was given presents to kids and stuff like that, things that Santas normally do. But what I'm picturing is Harrison just walking through the White House dressed like Santa in December, signing bills and things like that.
That's great. And finally, drum roll, please.
Oh, is this the last one for tonight?
Yes.
Oh, that was quick.
William Howard Taft. I know. I told you we were going to keep on schedule this time.
Yep.
And we'll have some time for announcements.
Okay.
So William Howard Taft. Good things. Well, I'm going to leave that off the list.
Yeah,
now.
he admitted New Mexico and Arizona. Whoopee. There were indigenous people living there.
He vetoed a bill requiring literacy for immigrants, which made it.
Yeah, when I read that,
it made it easier
bizarre.
for people to immigrate. So that's great. I think it's just awesome.
Oh, immigrants. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. We've been off the show for too long. I was reading literacy for infants, and I was thinking, come again? Okay. Yeah, that does make more sense. Yeah. I'm a little dyslexic sometimes, if you hadn't noticed. Basically forcing babies to learn to read. Okay, yeah. Either one of those bills would be a bad idea, and regardless of the specifics, I'm glad he...
If you can't read, don't you dare come out of that womb.
All right, let's see. As far as the bad, he set aside about 3 million acres of oil land. Let's see. He created the Mann Act, which was very ambiguous. It seems helpful because it prevents white slave trafficking. But it was actually a moral limitation on female ability to practice sex.
Fun. I just love it. Love it.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite acts. Okay, so basically, you can't transport a woman across a state line, and then she can't. If you take a woman across state line, you can take her across state line, but she can't proceed to have sex with anybody across that state line. It's one of the things.
What?
Yeah. So Andrew and I, Shire Dude, if you haven't checked out shiredude.com, you should. So Andrew has been talking for a while about doing some segments of a new show, and the new show would be people breaking stupid laws. And he asked me,
Is the Mann Act still on the books?
Yeah, the Mann Act is still active.
So
This is something that
if
my
it's how
roommate
you're
and I talked about.
if it's how you're describing it, then basically going into another state to have a honeymoon with your wife is illegal.
No, because you both came across. You were the person that transported her.
Oh, okay.
She just can't have sex with somebody else across that state line. Anyway, he specifically
okay,
came
so
to
if you're
me.
swingers and you go into another state, then that's illegal.
I don't know why he thought that this would be the perfect thing to ask me to do in regards to breaking laws, but he came up to me and was like, "Hey, would you mind breaking the Mann Act?"
Yeah, why would he ask you? I have no idea.
Because I'm Bali. So it makes it okay.
Yes, thank you for explaining the joke.
Yeah. Okay. So next thing, he allowed his administration to be anti-free market capitalism with their demonization of products or products of producers like Andrew Carnegie, who was a genius and amazing.
If you say so. No, this is just kind of a we got a couple minutes left. Did you know that Andrew Carnegie is the reason that we have lawns as we know them today in the United States?
What?
Yep. True story.
That's
okay.
awesome.
All right. Shall I explain?
Yeah.
Okay, so Carnegie was from Scotland. And in Scotland, most people have lawns because they just grow grass in their yards, and most people, at least back then, kept sheep. They would keep the yard in good order. But over in this country, it was not very practical to do that because you didn't typically keep livestock in your front yard, and the grass is just a lot of undue work. So most of the time, so that your yard was safe for kids and not just full of rocks and tall brush and things that could hide snakes and other animals and stuff. Most people would actually sweep their yards and turn it into basically just a dust pit essentially. But Carnegie, when he moved over here, he wanted something that reminded him of home. So he basically asked for a Scottish yard as he knew it. And because he was so rich and influential, everyone else started copying him, and that's how we have yards today.
Awesome. That's interesting.
Yep.
But
Now, I believe that anyone who created the modern American obsession with lawns is worth being demonized at least a little bit, but not for the reasons that Taft was doing it. Is that fair?
okay. Well, Taft also didn't veto the 8-hour work week rule, which made it, impossible for Americans to work more than 8 hours, which is frustrating because,
Unless you take 2 jobs.
you should be allowed to work as long as you want. There's no reason that people shouldn't be able to work as long as they want. That's
He also
ridiculous.
created the Bureau of Mines because we just needed more branches.
Awesome. And the worst thing he did, he passed the 17th Amendment. Do you know what that means? It means that
Income
he
tax.
created a graduated income tax.
Now let me ask you this.
Graduated.
I understand that the amendment was passed when he was president, but I'm fairly certain that the president doesn't actually have anything to do with the passing of amendments. I'm pretty sure that's Congress.
Yeah, but he could have vetoed it.
Could he? I don't
Yeah.
know that he could have.
I'm almost positive there's still veto power in regards to amendments.
If you say so.
Well, let me find out. So you want to tell them their fun fact?
Yeah. Okay, so Taft was a big boy. He weighed over 300 pounds, and you figure this is in an earlier day when malnutrition was high across the country and people were generally shorter. So yeah, he weighed over 300 pounds. He was actually the heaviest president in American history. So large, in fact, that he actually had to have a special bathtub brought into the White House to fit him. Let's see. He was also a golf enthusiast.
Oh yeah, he was really into golf. Can you imagine a fat man being into golf?
Yeah, I've never seen one of those. That'd be crazy.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what the rules are on amendments.
I'm fairly certain that he didn't have much to do with the income tax. I could be wrong. It did happen in his time, but that might be a little unfair.
I don't know. It doesn't say.
Yeah,
I
I'm
guess
pretty sure the president doesn't have anything to do with amendments. While I'm not exactly happy with how amendments can be placed, but I'm glad that's not the case. Can you imagine if our current president had the ability to pass constitutional amendments, pass or veto? That would be horrifying.
I don't. If you guys could see my face right now. So, yeah, that's our list for the week. But I'll tell you guys, there is one more thing that I do want to tell you guys about. I hope you really enjoyed the show, and we're excited to be back. And this will be again a weekly thing. So make sure you join us next week. Make sure you check out objectivescroll.com. Like me at Lauren Rumpler on Facebook. Also, make sure that you check out the Crony Capitalist Awards from the Atlas Society. You'll see a link to it on my Lauren Rumpler page. The Atlas Society, who I work for, is creating awards to give to crony capitalists, and you get to vote on your favorite crony capitalist. And if you choose the right person, and that person wins, and you're the person that nominated them, you win $1,000. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So make sure you check it out and sign up and share it with all your friends. And Calvin, can they find you anywhere?
Of course they can find me.
Okay.
I told you, I am freedom. They can find me wherever somebody is back-talking someone at the DMV. Whenever authority is questioned and wherever liberty prevails. I am the bacon in the fridge for anybody who cries out in hunger for liberty.
You are legend.
I am freedom.
You are legend.
You can always find me.
So make sure you guys check us out next week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And like us at True Objective on Facebook. Remember, guys, knowledge is not for all men, but for those who seek it. So keep seeking.